My sister mocked me at dinner, saying, "At least I have someone who loves me." That night, I walked in on her husband making out with her best friend. My silence at the table the next day said everything. I'm Daniel, 30 years old, male. And I swear to God, last night might have been the first time in years I wanted to scream across the dinner table instead of swallowing it all down. My sister, Melissa, 32, female, has always had this talent for twisting the knife without even raising her voice. Growing up, she was the golden kid, the one who got the better grades, the better clothes, the better everything. Our parents, Ellen and Robert, never admitted to playing favorites, but anyone with eyes could see it. Melissa was their star, and I was the kid who just needed to try harder. It used to be little stuff. If Melissa forgot her homework, it was because she was overworked. If I forgot mine, I was lazy. If she dated someone who turned out to be a jerk, they comforted her and told her she deserved better. When my long-term girlfriend dumped me a few years back, they called it a wake-up call to stop wasting my life. But last night, that dinner, it felt different. Like she'd been waiting for the perfect moment to cut me open and watch me bleed. We were at my parents' house, all crammed around the table. Melissa, her husband Eric, 34, male, their 2 kids, and then me. No partner, no kids, no success story to trot out like some family trophy. Just me with my awkward small talk and whatever bottle of wine I brought as a peace offering. It was fine at first. Melissa was holding court as usual, telling some long-winded story about her best friend Claire, 31, female, the one who's basically her shadow. Claire's at every barbecue, every holiday, every milestone. She and Eric joke with each other like they're siblings, which has always sat weird with me, but I kept that thought to myself. Then, out of nowhere, Melissa drops it. She's carving into her steak, smiling like the damn Cheshire Cat, and she says, "Well, at least I have someone who loves me." The whole table went silent. My fork froze midair. She didn't even look at me when she said it, just kept sawing at her food like she'd made some casual observation about the weather. But everyone knew who it was aimed at. I laughed. What else could I do? I laughed like it was some harmless joke, even though it felt like someone poured boiling water right down my throat. My mom cleared her throat. My dad asked Eric about work. The moment passed for everyone but me. After dinner, I went back to the guest room they'd set up for me. Tried to scroll on my phone, tried to shake it off, but my chest just wouldn't stop buzzing with that humiliation. That's when I heard voices down the hall. Low voices, hushed laughter. The sound of someone stumbling against a wall. I told myself to stay put. That nothing good ever comes from snooping. But my body moved before my brain caught up. I stepped into the hallway, and that's when I saw it. Eric, my sister's perfect husband, making out with Claire, her best friend, pressed up against the wall like teenagers at a high school dance. His hands were on her waist, her fingers tangled in his hair. My breath caught so hard I thought I might choke. They didn't even notice me at first. They were too wrapped up in each other, too oblivious to the fact that the whole rotten secret was laid bare just 10 feet from where Melissa was tucking her kids into bed. I didn't say a word. I just turned, walked back to my room, and shut the door. But I swear to you, my silence wasn't weakness. It was a fuse being lit. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, all I could see was Eric's hand on Claire's hip, her laughing into his mouth like it was the most natural thing in the world. I lay there staring at the ceiling of that old guest room, listening to the faint creaks of the house settling. It was surreal, knowing Melissa was just down the hall, tucking her kids into bed with lullabies, while her husband was practically swallowing her best friend whole in the next room. Morning came with that dull ache in my chest that feels like heartbreak but sharper, more poisonous. I could hear clattering from the kitchen, Melissa bossing Mom around about how she likes her eggs, Eric putting on that helpful son-in-law act, Claire's laugh cutting through the air like glass. When I walked in, everyone went quiet for just half a beat, long enough that I knew my face gave me away. Maybe it was the bags under my eyes, maybe the silence in me that wasn't just tired. It was heavy. Ellen tried to fill the gap with a chirpy, "Coffee's hot, honey," but Melissa was watching me. She's always been able to sniff out blood in the water. I sat down at the table, poured myself coffee, and didn't say a word. My silence was thick enough to make even the kids squirm. They were picking at their pancakes while Melissa twirled her fork, staring at me like she was trying to read my mind. Eric, though, He couldn't meet my eyes. He kept glancing at Claire across the table like some guilty teenager, then back at his plate. Claire was overcompensating, chattering about some new Pilates studio she wanted Melissa to try, laughing too loudly at her own story. Melissa finally broke. "What's your problem, Daniel?" Her tone had that smug edge, the same one she used at dinner the night before when she mocked me. I lifted my eyes to hers and just looked. I didn't speak. I didn't give her the satisfaction of rising to it. I let my gaze flick to Eric, then to Claire, then back to Melissa. That was enough. Her face changed. Confusion first, then irritation, then something that almost looked like fear. She knew. Or at least she knew I knew. "Seriously?" she snapped. "You're just going to sit there sulking like a child?" Robert cleared his throat, muttering something about family breakfast shouldn't be tense, but the air was already charged. The whole table felt like it might collapse under the weight of what wasn't being said. I sipped my coffee slowly. That silence, it wasn't cowardice. It was a blade I was holding steady, right at all three of their throats without ever opening my mouth. Melissa pushed her chair back suddenly, the legs screeching against the tile. "You know what? If you've got something to say, Daniel, say it." I smiled then. Just a small, tight smile. "No," I said. "Not yet." The way Eric froze, the way Claire's hand trembled when she picked up her glass, that told me everything I needed to know. Melissa had no idea just how close her entire world was to imploding. The ride home from my parents was quiet. Melissa had insisted Eric drive her and the kids back, while Claire followed in her own car. I stayed behind, telling Ellen I'd help clean up the dishes. She didn't press, but she gave me this soft, searching look, the kind mothers give when they know something's wrong but can't name it. I didn't tell her. Not yet. I didn't want to say the words out loud because once I did, there'd be no taking them back. The thing about silence is that it spreads. By the next week, Melissa was texting me weirdly often. Short messages, fishing for something. "Did you make it home okay? You were acting strange at breakfast. Is there something you're not telling me?" I never answered. Not a single one. Just left her on read. And the more I didn't respond, the more frantic her messages got. Meanwhile, Eric started slipping. A mutual friend, someone I went to high school with, ran into him at a bar downtown. Alone. He said Eric looked like a man sitting in his own shadow, staring at his phone, ignoring the game on TV, not the polished family man Melissa paraded around. Just a guy waiting for a text that wasn't coming. And Claire, she couldn't keep up the mask either. She posted one of those Instagram stories of her self-care night with wine and candles, but there in the background reflection of the window, clear as day, was Eric's arm draped across her lap. She deleted it within minutes, but not before I screenshotted it. I wasn't ready to use it yet, but oh, it burned in my pocket like a live coal. The paranoia really started eating Melissa alive at our mom's Sunday dinner. She showed up in a storm, hair done too perfectly, smile too wide, voice too loud. She talked over everyone, snapped at the kids, and kept shooting daggers at me across the table. Finally, she blurted, "What's your problem with Eric and Claire?" Ellen dropped her fork. Robert froze mid-bite. The whole table tilted into silence. I leaned back in my chair, folded my arms, and asked, "Why would I have a problem with them?" Melissa's voice cracked when she said, "Because you're always watching, judging." Eric's hand twitched on the table, and Claire suddenly excused herself to the bathroom. The kids looked scared, and that's when I realized something important. Melissa didn't know yet. She just felt it. Her own gut was turning against her. I smiled. "If you think there's something to judge, that's not my problem." Melissa slammed her glass down so hard red wine splashed across the tablecloth. "You're trying to ruin my family," she hissed. Robert muttered her name like a warning, but she was already on her feet, pacing, wild-eyed. "I knew it. You've always hated me. You can't stand that I have a husband, a life, children, love, and you have nothing." Her voice broke on that last word. And in the silence that followed, Eric stared at his plate. Claire didn't come back from the bathroom for a long time, and my parents sat in stunned disbelief. I didn't need to say a thing. She was unraveling herself. After that Sunday dinner meltdown, things didn't calm down. They escalated. Melissa had never been one to keep her emotions bottled. If she couldn't control me with her usual smirks and digs, she'd blow the whole damn house up. By Wednesday, Ellen called me, her voice tight. "Melissa came over crying," she said. "She said you're obsessed with tearing her marriage apart." I laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. "Did she say why?" "She said you're making things up about Eric and Claire," Mom whispered, like even saying it out loud was dangerous. I didn't correct her. I just let the silence hang, the same way I'd been doing at every meal. The silence was driving Melissa insane. The breaking point came 2 weeks later. Ellen and Robert hosted a barbecue, invited neighbors, extended family, even some of Melissa's coworkers. The yard was packed, kids running wild, burgers smoking on the grill. The kind of summer afternoon where nothing should go wrong. Except Melissa was already wound tight when she arrived. Her laugh was too loud, her hand gripping Eric's arm too hard, like she needed to show the world she owned him. Claire turned up late, wearing one of those sundresses Melissa used to love. That was enough to set Melissa vibrating with anger before a single word was spoken. I kept to myself most of the day, leaning against the fence with a beer, watching it all unfold like a movie. And then, it happened. Melissa cornered me by the food table, her voice sharp enough to slice through the chatter. "You're pathetic, Daniel. Do you get off on sitting there, acting superior, waiting for me to fail? At least I have someone who loves me." That last line, she practically screamed it. The same words from that dinner, but louder, sharper, with half the party as an audience. Every conversation around us stuttered to a stop. Eric froze at the grill, spatula midair. Claire's face went pale. Ellen rushed forward. "Melissa, enough!" But Melissa wasn't done. "You think you're better than me because you sit there judging? You're alone. You'll always be alone." She grabbed her wine glass, and before anyone could stop her, she hurled it against the patio wall. It exploded in a spray of red and glass, kids screaming as adults pulled them back. Eric tried to grab her arm, but she jerked away, shouting, "Don't touch me! Don't you dare touch me right now!" The whole yard was dead quiet except for her ragged breathing. And I, calm as anything, set my beer down and said quietly, "If you're so secure in your marriage, Melissa, why are you the only one screaming?" Every eye turned. Eric's knuckles went white on the spatula. Claire stared at the ground, and Melissa? She looked like she might actually rip the skin off her face trying to hold herself together. I didn't push further. I didn't need to. The seeds were planted. By the time Ellen dragged Melissa inside, muttering apologies to the guests, the whispers had already started. Neighbors exchanged looks. Family members huddled. Everyone had seen the cracks, and I knew, standing there with glass crunching underfoot, that I was holding dynamite, and all I had to do was wait for the right moment to light it. Update. Wow, I didn't expect so many people to care, or to DM me wild theories about what I should do. Some of y'all said I should blow everything up immediately, some said stay out of it, and one guy, who I swear has watched too many mob movies, told me to salt the earth so Melissa could never recover socially. Tempting. But here's the thing. The barbecue happened, and I don't think I need to do much. Melissa did most of the work for me. If you missed the last part, she lost it, screamed at me in front of half the neighborhood, threw a wine glass against the wall like she was auditioning for Real Housewives of Suburbia. And here's the kicker. People are talking. After I left that night, my cousin texted me. WTF happened? Everyone thinks Melissa's marriage is falling apart. Another family friend messaged, "Eric looked guilty as hell. Your sister should be worried about him, not you." And the best one, someone sent me a screenshot of Claire's Instagram. She went private, just like that. No more Pilates selfies, no more wine night posts. Radio silence, which, in my book, is basically an admission of guilt. Melissa's been blowing up my phone since. 20 texts in a row, accusing me of planting ideas in people's heads, telling me I'm ruining her reputation. One message literally said, "If my marriage ends, it's your fault." No, Melissa. If your marriage ends, it's because your husband can't keep his tongue off your best friend. And Eric? He's been calling me too. Once, twice, 5 times, always late at night, never leaves a voicemail, just hangs up when I don't answer. Like he wants to confess or beg me to stay quiet, but he doesn't have the guts. Honestly, part of me wants to go nuclear right now. Just drop the receipts, tell Melissa exactly what I saw, shove that screenshot of Eric's arm on Claire's lap into her face. But another part of me, the petty patient part, Wants to let her stew, let her paranoia rot her from the inside until she snaps again, this time in front of someone who isn't me. Because here's what I've learned. Silence is louder than screaming. And right now, my silence is making her lose her damn mind. So yeah, I'm not rushing. I'm not saving her from herself. I'm just sitting back, waiting. And trust me, when I finally speak, it won't be quiet. After the barbecue fiasco, Melissa avoided me. Not that I minded. Her silence was its own kind of proof. But the funny thing? The less I said, the louder everyone else got. Ellen called me twice that week, her voice shaking. Melissa's off. She's snapping at the kids, screaming at Eric over nothing. She keeps saying you're plotting something. Daniel, you wouldn't, right? I just told her I wasn't plotting anything, which was true at the time. But hearing the fear in Mom's voice lit something in me. I realized Melissa had spent her whole life using words to tear me down, while I'd always been the quiet one. But now, I had truth on my side. And truth, when dropped at the right moment, is the most destructive thing in the world. That's when I started planning. First move, I dug out the screenshot of Claire's Instagram story with Eric's arm in the background. I sent it to myself 3 different ways, stored it in a hidden folder, printed a copy, and tucked it into a book in my room. This wasn't just evidence, it was a matchstick. Second move, I started watching Claire. Not obsessively, just enough to notice things. Her car parked outside Eric and Melissa's house when Melissa was supposedly at yoga. The way Eric's phone lit up at family dinner, and he'd slip away from the table to answer in the garage. One night, I even followed Claire after she left Melissa's. She drove straight to a hotel on the edge of town. I didn't go inside. I didn't need to. The fact she pulled into the back lot and killed her headlights told me everything. Third move, I bided my time. Melissa invited me to her youngest kid's birthday party, probably out of obligation. Half the family, half the neighborhood was there, with balloons, a bounce house, and Melissa putting on her best perfect mom act. Eric was behind the grill again, forced smile plastered on his face. Claire showed up late, bringing gifts like she was family. And I just waited, watched, recorded. Because here's what Melissa didn't understand. I wasn't going to confront her in the kitchen or send her an angry text. That would give her control of the narrative. No, I was going to make sure when the truth came out, she wouldn't be able to spin it. I wanted her world to break in front of everyone. And at that birthday party with kids laughing and cake being sliced, I felt the moment drawing closer. Melissa was all smiles, but her eyes were darting, watching me like I was a loaded gun at the table. She wasn't wrong, because I had already decided I was done being quiet. The next family gathering wasn't going to end with me swallowing my words. It was going to end with Melissa choking on hers. The thing about revenge is, it's not the strike that matters, it's the timing. And the timing landed in my lap when Ellen and Robert decided to host a family dinner a week later, one of those forced peacekeeping meals where everyone pretends things are fine. Melissa tried to cancel twice, but Ellen insisted. I knew that meant the whole crew would be there. Melissa, Eric, their kids, and of course Claire, who somehow never missed a family meal she wasn't technically invited to. That night, I walked in with a calmness that almost scared me. Melissa, on the other hand, looked brittle. Too much makeup, hair too perfect, smile stretched tight as piano wire. Eric hovered by her side, eyes downcast, while Claire breezed in late wearing a dress that looked like she'd dressed for him, not for dinner. We sat around the table, Ellen bustling with dishes, Robert making small talk about the news. The kids squabbled over bread rolls. On the surface, normal. Underneath, a landmine field. Melissa tried to keep control. She asked Eric to tell everyone about the promotion, but he stumbled, mumbling something vague. She snapped at the kids for chewing too loud. When Robert asked Claire about her job, Melissa cut in before she could answer, her voice sharp. The tension was thick enough to choke on. And that's when I pulled my phone out. I set it down on the table, unlocked it, opened the screenshot of Claire's deleted Instagram story, the one with Eric's arm draped over her lap, and I slid it across the table to Melissa. The moment she saw it, her fork clattered onto her plate. Color drained from her face. "What is this?" she whispered. Eric froze, staring at his food. Claire reached out, too slow, trying to grab the phone. Melissa slapped her hand away. No, no, you don't get to touch this. The table erupted. Ellen gasped. Robert demanded to know what was going on. The kids started crying. Melissa shoved back her chair so hard it toppled. She was shaking, wine spilling down her arm as she pointed at Eric. How long? She screamed. How long have you been doing this to me? Eric stammered, tried to stand, but Melissa hurled her glass against the wall. It shattered, red wine dripping like blood down the wallpaper. Don't you lie to me, Eric, not in front of them. Claire started crying, babbling that it wasn't serious, but Melissa lunged at her across the table. Robert had to grab her by the shoulders to hold her back. The kids were screaming now, Ellen trying to drag them out of the room. And me? I sat there, calm, silent, watching Melissa's whole carefully constructed world collapse in front of the people she cared most about impressing. Finally, Melissa turned to me, eyes wild, face streaked with tears. You, she choked out. You planned this. I leaned back in my chair, hands folded. No, Melissa, I said softly. You did. The room was chaos. Shouts, broken glass, Claire sobbing, Eric silent as stone. But in the middle of it, Melissa's eyes locked on mine. And she knew. The silence I'd carried for weeks had just detonated. Update 2. So, yeah, the bomb went off. If you read my last post, you know I slid the screenshot across the dinner table and let Melissa's perfect little world collapse in front of everyone. I don't think I'll ever forget the sound of that glass hitting the wall or the way she screamed at Eric like she was trying to peel his skin off with her voice alone. And now the fallout is everywhere. First off, thanks to everyone who commented on the last post. Some of you said to wait for the perfect time. Y'all, I think I nailed it. Others said to stay out of it. I think it's safe to say that option's off the table now. Since that night, I've been getting texts from half the family. My cousin literally messaged me, "You're a savage. You didn't even raise your voice and you destroyed them." Another relative sent me a video. Someone at the table recorded part of Melissa's meltdown. Yep, it's floating around the family group chat now. Melissa shrieking, "How long have you been doing this to me?" with wine dripping down the wallpaper behind her. Can't unsee it. Melissa? She's furious. Sent me a paragraph-long text saying I humiliated her, that I waited like a snake to strike, and that she'll never forgive me for destroying her marriage. Notice how none of that includes thank you for exposing my cheating husband and best friend. Eric hasn't said a word to me. Radio silence. Not a call, not a text, which honestly says everything. And Claire? She actually had the audacity to message me, asking why I didn't talk to her privately before showing Melissa, like I owed her discretion after she was dry humping my sister's husband against a hallway wall. But here's the wildest part. Ellen and Robert, my parents, the ones who always made excuses for Melissa, who always painted me as the bitter little brother. They actually thanked me. Not out loud, not directly, but Ellen called the next morning. Her voice was soft, tired. She said, "You did what needed to be done." That was it, but it was enough. And Reddit, some of y'all really cracked me up. One guy said I was the quiet executioner. Another said, "Your silence was the guillotine." I don't know about that, but damn, it felt good to finally let reality do the talking. So where does that leave us? Melissa's still in the house with Eric, for now, but I heard she's been locking him out of their bedroom. Claire's been ghosting everyone, too embarrassed to show her face. And me? I'm just sitting here, watching the empire she built on smug little digs crumble brick by brick. Honestly, I thought I'd feel guilty, but I don't. Not one bit. The days after the dinner felt unreal, like I'd stepped out of my own skin and was just watching the wreckage from a safe distance. But the wreckage was loud. Melissa didn't just fall apart quietly, she dragged the whole neighborhood into it. The first time she showed up at my apartment, I opened the door and there she was. Mascara streaks down her face, hair a mess, clutching one of her kids on her hip. She shoved past me without asking. "You think you won, don't you?" she spat, pacing my living room. "You think you exposed something? You didn't expose anything. You destroyed me." The kid, her youngest, was crying, confused. She put him down on my couch like he was a prop in her breakdown. "Look at him," she said. "Do you want him to grow up without a family? Is that what you wanted?" Her words hit like knives, but not for the reasons she thought. I wasn't the one who'd put her son in this position. Eric and Claire had. Still, watching her weaponize her kid as a guilt trip nearly made me lose it. I told her calmly, "Melissa, take him home. This isn't about me." That sent her over the edge. She started screaming, full-throated, guttural, so loud a neighbor came to knock on the door and ask if everything was okay. She shoved past him on the way out, yelling, "Ask my brother what he did to me. Ask him how he ruined my marriage." So now the neighbors knew too. And Eric? He wasn't even trying to fix it anymore. Word got around that he was seen leaving Claire's apartment 2 nights in a row. Melissa heard, of course. I know because Ellen called me, crying, saying Melissa had smashed every picture frame in their living room. The kids had to be taken to Robert's house just so they wouldn't watch their mom breaking glass and screaming at the walls. Claire, for her part, tried to salvage the friendship. She texted Melissa this long apology, begging to meet up woman to woman. Melissa responded by posting a screenshot of the message to her Facebook with the caption, "This is what betrayal looks like. Half the family saw it. Half the town saw it." Melissa wasn't just imploding privately anymore. She was broadcasting her dissent. And through all of it, she kept trying to rope me in. Voicemails at 2 a.m., accusing me of turning people against her, texts saying I wanted her kids to hate her. Even one message where she threatened to show up at my work and tell everyone what a lonely, bitter freak I was. It should have rattled me. But honestly, watching her try to torch me only made her look worse. Because the truth was already out there, and the more she screamed, the more everyone could see it. It ended the way I always knew it would. Not with a quiet apology, not with reconciliation, but with Melissa detonating in public for the last time. It was Ellen's birthday. Robert threw her a dinner at a local restaurant, invited close family, some friends, even a couple of Ellen's coworkers. Everyone knew things were tense, but they came anyway, hoping Melissa could hold it together for one night. She couldn't. Eric showed up separately. No wedding ring. He sat at the far end of the table, didn't say a word except to the waiter. Melissa arrived late, dragging the kids in behind her like human shields. Claire didn't come at all. By then, she was radioactive, hiding from everyone. For the first half hour, it was almost normal. Ellen unwrapped gifts, people chatted, but Melissa couldn't stop glaring down the table at Eric. You could feel her rage vibrating through the silverware. Then, out of nowhere, she stood up, clinking her glass like she was about to give a toast. "I just want to say," she started, her voice already trembling, "that family is supposed to mean something. Family is supposed to protect you, not destroy you." The room went still. Forks froze midair. Robert's face sank into his hands. Melissa's eyes locked on me. My own brother decided it was his mission to humiliate me, to tear apart my marriage, to make me look like a fool in front of everyone. People shifted uncomfortably. Ellen whispered her name like a prayer, begging her to sit down. But Melissa wasn't stopping. She jabbed her finger toward Eric. "And this man I married," her voice cracked, loud enough to turn heads at other tables, "couldn't even keep his hands off my best friend." Gasps rippled down the table. A couple of Ellen's coworkers excused themselves quickly, muttering about needing the restroom. Eric finally spoke, voice flat. "Melissa, stop." "Stop!" she screamed, grabbing a bread plate and hurling it at the wall. It shattered, people ducking. "You stop when you destroy someone's life? When you crawl into bed with my best friend while I'm reading bedtime stories to our children?" The kids were crying now. Ellen was sobbing quietly. Robert stood up, trying to pull Melissa back down, but she wrenched away, wild-eyed. And me? I stayed seated, calm, watching her burn herself alive with her own words. Finally, the manager came over, threatening to call the police if she didn't leave. Melissa stormed out, dragging the kids, still shouting about betrayal and snakes in the family. Eric stayed seated for a long moment before standing, tossing his napkin on the table, and walking out the other direction. The silence that followed was deafening. Ellen wouldn't look at anyone. Robert muttered apologies to the stunned guests. And me? I just sipped my water and said nothing. Because I didn't need to. Melissa had done the work for me. She'd exposed herself, her marriage, her so-called friendship, her unraveling, in front of everyone she'd spent her life trying to impress. Now, when people looked at her, they wouldn't see the golden child. They'd see a woman screaming in a restaurant, hurling plates, while the truth hung in the air for everyone to choke on. Later that night, as I walked home, I thought back to the first dinner, when she sneered at me across the table. At least I have someone who loves me. Now she had no husband, no best friend, and a reputation in ashes. And me? I didn't raise my voice once. My silence had said everything.